Chicago, they get a different kind of situation. They want to do it as a way to get out. You don't want your kids in it. What kind of vibe did you get from Calabria?
Well, when he was telling me about that, the same thing he told you, I thought, it was completely different from, New York. And, so to me, it seemed like he was being pretty genuine, in what he was telling me. And I thought he was pretty good. And, his story with his whole dad, I mean, which we'll get into, but I thought it was, pretty rough. It's got to be rough growing up, especially being exposed to that as a young kid.
Exactly.
Life, your sons, you were supposed to make a better life for.
And you could tell I think he's haunted by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over the years with Tony Accardo and Paul Rica, they tried to go underground more. So a lot of stuff was underground. So growing up, I really didn't know what my dad did or in my neighborhood. So I grew up at Grand and Harlem, Elmwood Park.
I find that interesting because most guys that I've interviewed their life, and I know you have as well, they're almost like I was born into it. I was combed for it. I was groomed for it. Where it seems like for the most part, he was kind of how do I say this? He was shielded from it a bit.
Yeah, and a lot of the guys they really do. They're like groomed in it. Like I was saying with the whole New York thing. They want them. From what I heard, from the interviews, that's what they want their kids to be in. But they want them to be smart about it.
Exactly.
But Frank's dad, I think he slowly brought him in, or he was trying to make him smart. And he was trying to make him street smart and school smart. But,
yeah, which is interesting. Exactly.
Yeah.
My dad was from Brandon, Ogden. My mother was from Washington Boulevard on the West Side Irish. So in my neighborhood, our fathers were underground. We didn't have an idea of what they did. We knew they were a little different. Didn't pay much attention to it. As I got towards the end of grammar school, there's some stuff in the papers, and then 72, The Godfather came out, 74, Part 2.
Meg.
So we started putting two together, but it was never presented to us, so we didn't think much of it, and it wasn't out in the open like in New York. So, we were taught to go to school for work.
Now, describe a little bit. So when I set this up, what was your relationship with your father growing up?
Growing up, my father was a good guy.
Sorry, Adrian, a little bit of ambiance noise. I got the kid screaming in the background, other kid running. This is what happens when you have 4 kids, Adrian.
Yeah, no, I understand, man.
He was tough, but he was all about family. He had a lot of friends. We always had big gatherings. My dad never spoiled us and never was flashy.
Yeah, it seems like kind of the way he describes it, at least kind of his formative years, was a decent father. Did you get the same take?
Yeah, and like he said, his dad was very low key about what he was doing. But at the time, he said his dad was a complete different person, which eventually he slowly turned into this, monster serial killer.
Yeah.
We never wanted for anything, but we were never spoiled. He taught us manners.
Okay, so it's kind of given the setup. Let me just kind of fast forward a little bit.
Rica, Johnny Torrio, El Capone, they all originated in New York. So it was all mine.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. All the big mobsters from Chicago were from New York originally. So I thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah, that is.
2000s, early to the 2000s, when you had the Colombo War in New York, 2 Colombo Wars, the Castellano hit and that kind of stuff. There was kind of Pax outfit, meaning like peace.
Yeah, I mean, so my research, and again, the war might have been some going ons in terms of war in the past, but recent history shows that the Chicago outfit has pretty much been at peace with each other, no big wars. And again, I think it's a testament to just, being one family,
Yeah, that probably really stopped a whole lot of internal. I mean, it's all internal, so they're not going to, go and try and, if they're going to do something, they got to get permission, you would think, because everybody knows each other, and
exactly. And there's not fighting over territories, and it's all one, capo per area or whatever that is.
In the outfit,
right.
For a while, they kind of adopted that less or no violence, and that was part of the reason for the strength. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, they were going more legit. Government's getting stronger. They got a lot.
Yeah, it just the other thing is, and again, I know Adrian, I don't expect to be a super expert, but my impression always has been that the outfit was always kind of interwoven in society in Chicago, was always kind of a certain level of legitimacy, infiltrate a legitimate business. Is that something that you interviewed a few guys yourself and did some research? Is that something you found as well?
Yeah, definitely. Especially from what Frank would told me, it was that, a lot of the times, these guys had full-time jobs, you know what I mean? And also they, had to get some, ownership in some kind of companies and stuff. But yeah, they were pretty legit. But at the nighttime, that's when things would go. That's when they were doing, their Chicago outfit kind of stuff. So they had a lot of legitness to them, but there was also some criminal stuff going on as well.
Well, the other thing is, and I know, like in Italy, in the old school kind of guys, you could be like a butcher, you can be a carpenter, you could be kind of a regular guy. You had your regular job in your fabric society, but you also, were made mafioso.
Yeah.
For ways to make money and more legit ways to make money, and especially blowing things up was really bad. For some reason, you blow some up, the government's all over you.
Yeah.
So there was a time in the late '80s and the '90s where there wasn't a lot of violence, and everybody was making money.
What was your first racket?
As a kid, I started out in peep shows with my uncle going to collect.
Yeah, Adrian, what was your take? I mean, he kind of shared what is he was more of a money guy. So what he was doing, like Shylocking, what was his rackets?
Yeah, definitely. He said he was a loan shark, and he was doing, kind of I don't think he did a little bit of the bookie stuff, but
yeah,
I didn't hear the peep show. What is that? When I interviewed him,
like before your time, there used to be like you put a quarter. So I heard you put a quarter in, and like a thing goes up, and it's either a live woman like dancing around, kind of like a strip club type thing, or there's like a video, and you're in like a booth, or so I heard.
Okay, yeah, I know what you mean now.
I also learned loan sharking. Loan sharking was big.
There it is.
Yeah, I think he was a money guy. Did pretty well for himself.
Yeah.
Kind of was semi-legitimate, obviously, but semi-crooked. Had the father who was, powerhouse. One thing I do remiss on the interview is not to get all like psychological, but I didn't deep dive into like the true like nature of their relationship. I would have loved to love that dynamic a little bit more. That's why you do these unpackings. But I have a feeling that for him to do what he did, he obviously had to begrudge his father a little bit,
Right. Yeah.
Dad at one point had one of the biggest crews, if not the biggest.